Welcome to this special Italian wine podcast broadcast. This episode is a recording off Clubhouse, the popular drop-in audio chat. This Clubhouse session was taken from the Wine Business Club and Italian Wine Club. Listen in as wine lovers and experts alike engage in some great conversation on a range of topics in wine. And remember to subscribe and rate our show wherever you tune in. Hi guys, I'm Joy Livingston and I am the producer of the Italian Wine Podcast. Thank you for listening. We are the only wine podcast that has been doing a daily show since the pandemic began. This is a labor of love and we are committed to bringing you free content every day. Of course, this takes time and effort, not to mention the cost of equipment, production, and editing. We would be grateful for your donations, suggestions, requests, and ideas. For more information on how to get in touch, go to ItalianWinePodcast.com. Now, back to the show.
And welcome to Italian Wine Club. This is our weekly slot to 7 p.m. Central European Time today, as we are connected with Hong Kong as well as Italy. I'm actually calling in from New York today. I love the fact that we can actually do this, connecting the world literally. Next week, we will be back on our Thursday slot on 8 p.m. Central European Time. Today, we are back with what I believe is the fourth installment of this series, Ambassadors Corner, where Italian wine ambassadors and wine lovers get a chance to interview their favorite Italian wine producer. It all starts Cynthia interviewing Alberto Tasca a few weeks back. Then Xiao Wen interviewed Elena Fucci, her inspirational winemaker. By the way, if you missed that, we've just dropped the episode on Italian Wine Podcast today, so check that out. It was a heartwarming interview. I was in the podcast booth with Xiao Wen. It was very moving, so check that out. You'll learn a great deal, not just about Elena Fucci, but also Aglianico del Vulture in general. Then last week, I was more or less the absent moderator. My apologies to everyone. I was actually trying to multitask and something had to give. Thank you, Joy, for filling in for me last week. And as you know, Joy is our super duper Wonder Woman producer for Italian Wine Podcast. We'll give her some slack this week as she's somewhere in Croatia, I think. As you know, the entire month of August is practically on pause button for the holidays in Italy, but not us. I drive everybody crazy. We will still be bringing to you weekly calls on Italian Wine Club here at Clubhouse. After having listened to our call today, if you'd like to nominate and interview your favorite Italian wine producer, please ping me on Insta or reach out to Laika. She's our backstage club manager. You can see her on the first row, which she's been doing a great job on Italian Wine Podcast Instagram account as well. So let me just do the housekeeping quickly. As usual, our gentle reminder is that this room will be recorded and maybe replayed on Italian Wine Podcast, or let's hope so, unless there are some snafus. While you're at it, we'd really appreciate your support if you can give a thumbs up and rate our podcast wherever you get your pods, whether it's, podcast on your iPhone or Spotify or SoundCloud, whatever. And if you'd like to make a small donation, because this is a labor of love, everyone is working very hard for this, even better. We've got 2 moderators today, or shall I say 2 ambassadors. I'm very pleased to present to you our guest moderators. For our call today, Alice Wong, our what I call Fedelissima, Vinitaly International Academy Ambassador from Hong Kong. She's an incredibly talented and smart woman in the wine world. Alice is a wine educator, wine writer, judge, and consultant, and a brave soul. She even managed to get herself to Italy in June. Of course, there was a small snafu with the tests, etc. She was quarantined when she was back. Just very, very dedicated to the Italian wine community, and we are really grateful for that. She also manages wine events. Now she has become she became an ambassador in 2018, and she is primarily based in Hong Kong. So she works with many Italian government bodies to promote Italian wines in Hong Kong. And I believe she had worked for the consortium of Alto Adige. She was their ambassador as well. And also, she received the Hong Kong Living Influence Award in 2020 for her achievement in the food and beverage industry. So very lucky to have her in our community and our call today. Alan Kwok, her co-moderator, has a doctorate in chemistry, but on his bio, he prefers to drink wines with little chemical additives. I don't know what that means. I suppose he will explain that to us later as we get it into the conversation. He's currently the Master of Knights of Alba of Hong Kong delegation. So I guess, does this mean you've taken over for JC, I suppose?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. Congratulations. And the latest addition to the Italian Wine Ambassador certification, certified bona fide ambassador from Hong Kong. So, okay, on to you, Alice and Alan, and I will now shut up.
Hello, Stevie. Good to hear from you. You're having a good time in New York.
Actually,
Let me get started.
I'm in isolation because I saw my nephew Monday, and they were both vaccinated. They're twins, and they tested positive. So I'm on day 3. I actually will go do my PCR because on day 3 you're supposed to do it. I'm asymptomatic, but I've been isolated. So I'm in New York and doing a lot of Zoom calls.
Oh, goodness. I hope you're feeling okay, and I hope the vaccination helped.
Yeah, I'm fine, but it's crazy, this Delta variant. So take it away, Alice.
All right, Stevie. So let me get started. When we first hear that the Italian Wine Clubhouse is doing this Ambassador's Corner and asked us to invite us to choose a producer to interview, and Ellen and I both first think about Stef. So we thought that Stef Yim had a very interesting story to tell. Let me share my story first with Stef. A couple of years ago, maybe 4 years ago, my dad came home one day and told me that, I had a dinner tonight and I met with a wine producer and we became friends, and he invited me to his winery in Italy. And I was like, no way, Dad, I'm the one in the wine industry. You're not. How would you meet a wine producer that I've never heard of? And he went on and added extra information. I was born in Hong Kong. He's a Chinese winemaker. I said, no way, I've never heard of that. He must be joking with you. And then I left that conversation. And a few months later, I went through other friends who told me the same story. And that's when I realized it was true. And I found it interesting because over the years when I've known Stef, every so often we will come across the same story that people wouldn't believe that there is a Chinese winemaker in Italy. And so we thought it was quite a brave thing to do. And I imagined how the things he had to come across and overcome to be successful in promoting his winery. Just like when I teach Italian wines, sometimes I would come across Italian students, and I got a feeling that they must be thinking, who am I to teach them Italian wines when I'm Chinese and very Italian? So we thought it must be a very interesting story to listen to from Stef, how he overcome the cultural differences, being a foreigner, so to speak, in Italy, and become so successful these days with all his wine portfolio in Italy. I don't think he understand or speak Italian that much when he first moved to Sicily. So that was the reason that we chose Stef today to be our guest, because we want to listen not only to his philosophy in winemaking, but also the interesting story of how he overcome all these things and differences to do well in his business. And let's Alan introduce more detail about Stef's winery.
So hi everyone, bonjour. So Stef actually was born in Hong Kong, and then he moved to LA to work as a sommelier. And then he never imagined to produce his own wine until 2009. And then I think he was in a blind tasting. And then out of 10 wines he tasted, 2 of them, he ranked first and second are both from the volcanic soil. So he starts to look for volcanic soil around LA. And then he found that in Lake Lake County. And he started to make wine part-time in Lake County before he moved to Europe. And he made wine in France and also in the Canary Islands. And then he was looking for volcanic soil in Italy. And of course, as we know, there's only a few places with living volcano. And so he finally settled on Mount Etna. And it was very brave of him to purchase his own vineyard in 2014. And he started to make the wines. And the potential of it captured his heart. And the ideal to make wine, I think, in a natural way is really the core in his winemaking. So as Stevie mentioned before that I have a doctorate in chemistry, but I'm very sensitive to chemical addition to the wines. Like I get really headaches if there's too much sulfates in the wine. I care a lot about the vineyard, how they work with it, with pesticides and herbicides. And I think Stef will tell you more about this regarding his winemaking and so on. So I think let's hear the story from Stef.
Hi there. Okay. Hi guys, I'm Stef. I don't know where to begin. So basically I'm a winemaker. I'm making wine for the last 12 years. California, southwest of France, and now I'm in Sicily. I was a sommelier 17 years ago. I started as a sommelier back in LA. I worked my ass off, so I got burned thinking, making wine is a lot more fun instead of waiting tables. Here I am. You feel free to ask me any question. I don't know where do I begin.
Yes, Steph, why don't you tell us, I think Ellen mentioned 2014 was the year when you started the winery.
That's right. As a matter of fact, 14, I haven't really started buying the vineyards yet at that time. I bought some grapes and I started a trial. As a trial, I want to see what's going to happen, test drive it a little bit. So this is how I got started. I was working at that time in Madiran. Madiran is the region where I worked in France, southwest of France that I mentioned to you, since 2012. And I stayed there for 3 vintages. But then when I got a chance coming over the Etna, and I bought some grapes and I started to make some wines and just to see how it goes. And I've always been fascinated by volcanic soil. So volcanic soil is very special to me. I think it's the most interesting soil, the most diverse, in the sense that I'm talking about diversity of minerals compounds. So, Ellen knows what I'm talking about. So in the soil, you find a lot of different mineralities. So the minerals, they kind of play a very important part. So a lot of times that I believe I mentioned before that when I was a sommelier, I blind taste a lot of wines. And there are a couple of times, because I belonged to quartermaster sommelier at that time. So we had a lot of blind tasting meetings and stuff like that. And then a couple of times that I thought almost for certain that was Chambon Mussini or is Chambertin. And it turned out to be a wine from Tenerife or from Etna. So it was like I was totally intrigued. I would never imagined about anything like that. In that time, of course, I didn't have a chance to expose myself to a lot of volcanic wines. So, but I was fascinated since then. And not until 2009, when I got a chance to visit Mount Etna, I fell in love with that more. And the person that I first met was Frank Cornelis, a Belgian guy making wine on Mount Etna. So that was a turning page for me. It really opened my eyes. Yeah. So and then a few years later, I was working in France just for a winery. I wasn't the owner. I wasn't the person in control. I was just working there. And people telling me what to do. At that time, I was still learning a lot of stuff, and I was trying to, pick up gain more experience into winemaking. So a couple of years later, in France, I decided, you know what? I kind of know a lot at that time. I thought I know a lot, but of course, I'm still learning and understanding a lot of things. But at that time, I had that moment, I really want to have a vineyard for myself where I can do whatever experiments that I want. So because when I was working there, I was not allowed to experiment a lot of stuff. I was just doing the stuff I was told. So having a vineyard by myself, it gives me the freedom of making a lot of experiments and really a lot of trial and errors that I believe that's what I wanted at that time. So once after I finished the job, I decided this is I got to find my own vineyard.
So, Stef, obviously, Ellen and I have tried your wines, but I'm not sure if the audience here have tried your wines. So why don't you talk a little bit about your wines so we understand, and then you can, as you explain your wines, so we know what trial and error you have done.
Well, I met a lot of people here at the beginning, just to understand the place and just to understand the soil, the grapes. The grapes here is called Nero Mascalese. For the white, it's called Carcante and Catarato, and there are a lot of white indigenous grapes. I pick up from people who have been here for a long time. I try to listen to what I try to observe what they're doing, and for the first couple of years, first 2-3 years, because making wine in France is totally different than we're making wine in Sicily. The climate and everything, the soil, the practice, the traditions, it's different. The training is different. So basically, I have to learn a lot from scratch. For me, the wine that I make, my philosophy is to make from the beginning, is to make a wine as natural as possible. I don't want to put too much of chemical influence interventions in wine. That's my idea, like until now. I want to make a wine that be honest to the weather that particular year, the vintage and everything. So I don't believe you can make the same wine year after year unless there's some certain inventions. So basically, I work with the nature. I don't like to make a wine just to cater a certain market, a certain palate for certain people, certain critics. This is not my thing. This is not my intention. So, and that's why it's better off. At the beginning, I was thinking it's better off that I make my own thing. I do my own gig. This is what I do.
So, Stef, so for those who do not know, then your winery is called Sciara. It's located at the northern slope of Mount Etna in Sicily.
The reason why I named it Sciara means actually is Sicilian dialect. It means the lava road. It's a lava path. It's kind of like after eruption, the lava kind of runs down the hill and forms a road. So that's shock.
And how many bottles do you make a year?
More or less 12 to 14,000 bottles a year. Depends on the year. Like I said, I work with the nature. It depends what nature gives me. For example, for 2021, I have no idea how many kilograms of grapes I'm going to harvest, because the weather could change like all of a sudden last minute. So I couldn't tell you, but the thing that I can tell you is we spent a lot of time to nurture the vines, the land, and we do everything we could to make the best out of the land, the vines. So with a lot of effort, I believe in order to make a real good wine, it starts from the soil. It starts from the vineyard, not in the winemaking process. That's what I believe, yeah.
Can you tell us how many white wine do you make and how many red wine do you make?
Sure. I make 1 white and 4 reds. And the white is basically 9 crus, 9 different contrada. In Italiano si chiama contrade. Contrada is almost like, it kind of like the French call it cru, but not as tiny as, not as definitive or not as small as a cru, but a little bit bigger. It's more like a climat. It's like a climate. So each contrada has a different climat. You see what I mean? So to me, I think most intriguing thing for me is one of the reasons why I decided to buy a vineyard here at the first place, because of the diversity of the microclimate, or microclimate. So I got 9 of that, because one of them is kind of same right next to each other. So 9 to 10 vineyards that I got, and they're all from a different location.
So you have some of the most famous Contrada on Etna, like Taccione, Chavanova, Freddo di Mestro, Monte Dolce, and so on. But you decide to label your wines not according to the Contrada, but according to the altitude, isn't it? And then when I first start to drink like Mount Etna wines, then I have the bottles from like Gace, and then he labeled his wine like Quota 600 or Quota 1000, but he stopped to do that, and then he went back to the single like Contrada bottling. Is there a reason why you decide not to name the wines like Etna Rosso, according to the Contrada?
Okay, yeah, it's a good question. It's a very good question. Because my vision, because different people they have different focus. I think Gracchi more focused on the vineyard, a single vineyard, but I think that's maybe a little more easy to understand for a lot of people because the single vineyard is a general practice in Barolo, Burgundy, and all these places. But to me, as a matter of fact, up until 2017, I do make all the wines by single vineyards. It's just that I acquired over the years, for the last 6 years, I acquired more vineyards. And I decided, I'm going to make a wine with balance based on the same altitude. You see what I mean? The microclimates. Even though, okay, let me put it this way. Even though the grapes are harvested from different vineyards. For example, my 760 meters, by the way, I name my wines so the audience understand what I'm talking about. I name my wines based on the altitude of the vineyard. So, for example, the basic level wine is called 760. So 760, basically, I make a wine around the 760 meters above sea level. So we talk about meters, not feet, okay? Because that's a little bit different from States. I think you use with feet there. So, but in Europe we use meters. So my entry level wine is called 760. So the vineyard, they're blend since 2018. I do a blend from 2 vineyards. One is called Cru Taccione, and the other one named Chavanova is the name of it. That means new lava. There's nothing to do with the name of the wineries that you just heard. My winery is called Sciara. This vineyard is called Chavanova. Chavanova means a new vineyard. It's just a name. So since 2018, I blend 2 plots together during the final blending because I think the soils is almost identical. It's exactly the same, as a matter of fact. They're about 40 to 50% rocks and 30-some% sandy soil. And the rest are ashes on the topsoil. So the Canary is called volcanic ashes. So these, this composition are pretty much the same among these 2 vineyards. So I decided to blend together because the microclimate, they're very close to each other. They're only like 3 minutes away. And they're almost at the same altitude. One is 730, the other one's from 750 to 770. So, and when it rains, for example, if you get the humidity, the rain that happened in the Taccione, and you certainly got the rain in Chavanova. But prior to 2018, like 2015, 15, 16, 17, I only make a single vineyard. There's another wine, a little bit higher, it's called 980. The name of the wine is called 980. As you can tell, that vineyards are situated at a much higher level. It's 980 meters. So since 2018, the wine is blended the same proximities from 3 different locations within the same proximity. One is called Carana, Monte Dolce, and Bababek. Again, they're pretty much the same microclimates. So, and the same type of soil. It becomes more sandy. The color changes a little bit, and you find a little bit darker color among all these 3 vineyards. So it's quite interesting. So it is along the strip of Quota 1000. Quota 1000 means 1,000 meters. So there's a row on the mid-level of the mountain where you see all the vineyards along the way. So that's called the quarter lift, yes.
So, Steph, is that the highest altitude one that you have, or you have something higher?
No. So I got like from 760 considered the lowest, but is definitely not the least quality. It's just that the vineyard I named it is just it's just the altitude of the vineyard. So we have 980, and then we have another one's called 1,200 meters. And the 1,200 meters wine that actually coming from a single vineyard, it's called Contrada Taccione, and that's the highest on Mount Etna right now. As a matter of fact, that's the highest. I believe this is the highest vineyard in Italy or even in Switzerland. I'm pretty sure for red varieties. Don't hold me back on that. I'm talking about red varieties, commercially made red variety wine that considered the highest in Europe. It's 1,200 liters. Yes. So that goes into the bottles named 1,200 liters. So it's a single vineyard. Yes.
So, Steph, can you tell us, as you go up in the altitude, like what is the main taste difference?
The main taste, okay, the higher you get, the more elegant the wine, the less tannins you have, just to make it more simple to understand. But it doesn't jeopardize. We're not saying throwing away all the complexity and all that. It's just that you got more freshness into the wine when you have a high altitude grapes. And speaking about one of the reasons why I came here in the first place is because of global warming. And I faced a lot of problems when I was working in France. There are lots of heat, and the vines, the plants are shutting down in some years. So it was pretty bad from what I observed over the years. And I decided I don't want to make a wine like that. It's not my style. It's just personal opinion. So for me is I love a wine to have the freshness. The freshness that got just transparency of the taste, the structure. So I most of the time, to my experience, it's pretty hard for me to find that in the lower ground, in the lower altitude vineyards, so to speak. So, and that's why I reach out to a higher altitude.
So you mentioned earlier, right? The reason that you started your own winery is so that you can do some trial and error and find a way that you really can show the wine without interventions, but reflecting that vintage and the terroir. So could you tell us something that you have done or some of the problems that you've come with over time, and what makes your wine different based on the natural winemaking that you've employed?
Exactly what I just mentioned. The altitude really helps me to make the wine that I want to make. The style that I always stuck in my mind, how am I going to make a wine more delicate, but without sacrificing the structure, the complexity of the wine. Because a lot of times, if some of the audience are winemaker, they exactly know what I'm saying. Because it's pretty hard to juggle the weight, the body of the wine, the purity, the structure, and the transparency when you're in the wrong place. You know what I mean? So in order to get that, you have to have the ideal conditions. And for my ideal condition will be to have a place situated in the high ground in order to achieve that. So that's the trial and error that I was talking about there, because I wouldn't be able to find out until I actually have a vineyard in the high ground. You know what? Additionally, without having my neighbors spraying on the vineyard with chemicals. And this is one of the few places that I could find in the world where, in general, in the neighborhood, people are not much into toxic chemicals like herbicide, pesticides, and all that. So fundamentally, that really gives me something to start with. And I'm able to experiment the fermentation from a different altitude. I got to learn about the yeast because I work with natural yeast. I don't work with laboratory yeast. So for me, I always been wanted to make a wine with more indigenous microbes.
So, Steph, can we say that your wine are natural wines, and how would you define natural wines?
Oh yeah. You can say whatever you want, just the name. I hate to give it a name tag to a product or a thing. It's like I don't want to be too cliche, like everybody trying to say, "Oh, I'm organic, I'm bio, I'm natural," because there's been a natural wine movement for the last 15 years, and it seems like the natural wine thing is becoming more and more popular, and a lot of people take advantage of that and use it as a selling point. But that's why I don't want to call it anything. Natural. You can say it's natural. This is like that. This is a wine from Etna. It's a better word for it. Is coming from me. I would say it's an honest wine. It's the wine that doesn't give you a headache. If you have 2 bottles of my wine, it definitely won't give you a hangover the next day. That's for sure.
I think that's how you and Alan became best friends, right? Because he get headaches from that wine, and he drank yours, and he's fine. So, Steph, can you also tell us about your white wine? Because I know it is not made the usual way, but you age it a different way with a little bit of different intervention.
Yes. There's almost no interventions at all, and basically, like I said, I like to play around with things and experiment quite a lot. And the white wine was my very first attempt. As a matter of fact, for the last 12 years, I only been making red wines. I never made a white wine in my life until 2018. Believe it or not. It's a shame to say that, but it's just that I don't want to make a white wine until when I was ready. When I first settled down here, I got a lot of chance to pick the white grapes, but instead I decided not to do it in the early stage because I knew that at that time I wasn't ready. I don't want to just make a wine because I have to make a white wine because everybody else got a white wine. I want to make a white wine when I'm sure, when I kind of know what I'm doing, when I kind of know which direction I'm going, when I kind of know the blueprint of the wine that I want to make. So this is the way that I do things. So that's why I didn't make any white wine.
But your white wine is a blend of Cavalcante and Colorado, is it? But then we see in the market, like a lot of people market pure 100% Cavalcante. It's almost always more expensive than blend. And then you always, what is your take on that?
Well, I'm more like a pro-blend guy in terms of the Etna Bianco. I don't like, this is just my own palate.
Actually, what does each grape variety gives to the wine? So please explain what is in your blend first.
Sure. Okay. I'm not very good at explaining things, but I do my best. So, like I said, I'm a pro-blend guy on the Bianco, and I don't believe, just my personal opinion, for a single 100% Carcante will end up a wine that I like. It's just my personal taste. It's nothing more than that. Just my personal opinion. And I liked when I make a white wine. Like I said, I wasn't ready, and I don't want to make any white wine till I was ready, because I taste a lot of single variety 100% Caricante wine. I would say very few of them that impress my own palate. I'm not just representing the whole wine industry. Okay, just my own opinion. And to me, I think the wine has more complexity from the beginning, from the nose to all the way to the finish when it is blend. It's kind of like Caricante, the characteristic Caricante is kind of a bit like Riesling in a way. A spiky acidity at the beginning. Is the grape is, don't get me wrong though, is a fantastic grape. It is amazing, the grapes. It has a very lovable character, and the longevity is impeccable. And but it's just personally, I love to blend it to give it a little more color to it. It's like a painter. I don't want to go just monotone. I believe this grape we're going to gain more dimensions when I blend it with some other local varieties. For example,
And what are the contradas of where you source the white grapes?
Okay, the Contrada is coming from 4 Contradas. They're mostly Taccione and Carana. And there's some other local varieties, the Mount other 2 vineyards in Mount Etna.
And how old are the wines?
They range from like 17, 18 years all the way to like, some of them are like over 80 years. Yes. And some of them are close to 100. Few of them are close to 100. So the blend like for example, 2018, my white wine is called the Aqua de Luna, means the water from the moon or moon water, however you want to phrase it. These are the blend of 64% of Carcante, and then 25 to 28. I can't really give you exactly because we do topping sometimes, so it will be a lie to tell you like what exactly the percentage of grapes.
Like from an outsider, then we always think of the best white wine from Etna would come from the eastern slope, like from around below. Now, what is your take on that?
No, it's not true. Well, to me, it's not true. Well, people can say whatever they want. It's just that to me, on the east side is in general you got a lot more humidity. It's more rain there most of the time, and it's a bit cooler some hours during the day, and has a lot of people has been cultivating white grapes there because white grapes, as you know, they don't require as much as sun exposure as the red. So it will be more ideal to have to plant white varieties over on the east exposure. That's not rocket science, not because of the soils are more suitable for white grapes. It's just the weather tends to be this way intrinsically. So that's why people from way, way back when they decided that it is more this part of Etna facing the east is more suitable for white varieties. Okay. And speaking about like the wine, I just want to finish talking about the white wine that I make. So the rest of the blend, so I do like 60% of Carcante and 20% of Catarato, another indigenous grape, and then there's some Garganica, like it's called Dorado Garganica, yeah. And there's some Minella Bianco and other local grapes in Sicily. You find a lot on northern part of Sicily. So it's by blending all these grapes together, I kind of get the chemistry that I want, so to speak.
So, Steph, obviously, Ellen and I have tried your wines. How can where else do you have sell your wines? Can they try and do you sell them locally in Italy and also overseas in the U.S.?
Yes, we do.
Okay, in Sicily mainly, or all over Italy?
All over in Italy now. Yes, we just started. At the beginning, we only got the market in Japan, Hong Kong, and a little bit in Germany. So now we kind of branch out to the whole Italy, and hopefully in a few weeks it's going to be all over in Switzerland. Yes.
So how was it like when you first went there? You didn't speak much Italian. Was the environment welcoming, supportive, or was it skeptical about what you're doing there?
Yes, zero. Well, I just learned it along the way. I didn't go to school or I didn't read a book about it. I just talked to the workers. I think that's the best way. When you're the little kid, you don't speak any language, right? So it's just like, when people speak to you, you speak to them, you try to pick out whatever you can. I'm not trying to be a linguist or anything, but it's just, as far as the work goes, it's enough for me to my body language is pretty good. So it kind of helps a lot. But, Italian, we do a lot of body language, so they kind of understand what I mean, even though I didn't speak Italian at that time. But, no, they're very welcoming. The people here very friendly and majority, they're very friendly. Yes, so that helps a lot. And I met some people who speak a little bit of English, so it helps a lot too. And I don't think it's that difficult as long as you just tag along. You do whatever you need to do, and just not. But sometimes it could get quite frustrating when you try to explain people what you want, and but even now, not just from the beginning. We're coming from a different culture. It's totally the opposite end. So I grew up in the States. So I grew up in California. So there are lots of we're pretty up to the task most of the time. We do things based on our gender, and we're very systematically. This is what I was raised, the way I was raised. But then here is the opposite. It's kind of different.
All right, Steph, let me ask you one more question before we open up to the audience. So in terms, if we have other people in the audience in the future that want to do business in Italy and want to start a winery, and someone coming from Asia with the similar background, what would be the one piece of advice you give based on your own experience?
Well, first of all, I don't know what kind of advice to give. Is this just? It depends on the person. I wouldn't. There's something I wouldn't recommend is if people are coming here to make a wine because this is just for an act of show. It's just an act of show, just for business, just to or people that want to buy a winery because it looks good or sounds good. I wouldn't recommend it, because if you run into people want to invest in the vineyard, they should, really devote themselves into it. Not just an investment, not just a toy, so to speak. And
so, Steph, if I want to buy a vineyard at Chavanova, how much is it now?
Oh no, right now is nothing available as far as I know, and I don't know what's the price right now. To be honest with you, I bought it 5 years ago, and it was relatively cheap at that time. But maybe right now is over 250,000 a hectare, more or less 200 to 250,000 a hectare right now. Yeah.
Okay, let's take some questions from the audience if there's any.
We have two guests who like to ask questions. So, Chiro, why don't you start? Hi, Chiro. Good to hear from you.
I'm from, I live in Boston, but I'm from Salerno.
Okay.
So Campania. But anyway, 2 points I found very fascinating. One, I love the fact that you're not tagging yourself with one word to describe the way you make your wines. Secondly, the fact that the whites you blend, which in my opinion, at least in my experience, same thing. I feel like when they're 100% Caricante, there's something missing there.
Yes.
But again, that's my basic experience. But my question actually is about the Contrade, because as we draw a parallel with, like Barolo, Barbaresco, any of these other areas, yes, obviously some are more relevant vineyards than others. Mm-hmm. But the point is, I feel like at the end of the day, when you talk to Barolo producers on that end, they always feel like the ones that are blended, they tend to be always the most balanced rather than the single vineyard expressions, which, can be great. Is that something you feel the same way in Etna?
Yes.
Although you make a single vineyard wine.
No, as a matter of fact, yes. To me, there's how am I going to put it? There's a certain aspect to it. Okay, there's a yes and no. All right. As long as why I blend them together, and why some of the producer in Barolo, they rather blend the wine together instead of having a single vineyard. And I believe, based on my experience, because we have this, as long as it's the same soil, as long as you're able to find that how many vineyards you're going to, any particella, any parcel from different area you're going to blend together. As long as the soil are the same. To me, huh? Because if your soil is different, like for example, let me point out a very good example. For the 760 vineyard, it's called Taccione. This piece of land has a lot of rocks. It contained like almost 50% of rocks in the soil. And the rocks in general, it helps the water with less retention. So after the rain in general, the land tends to be more dry. And it tends that and the rocks, the volcanic rocks, act as a heater, as absorbents during the day from the heat, and it releases the heat during the night. So it's kind of like a heater, like a vector that absorbs the heat during the day. And this kind of soil, kind of similar to the rocks over in Châteauneuf-du-Pape. And I wouldn't like to blend this kind of wine because this kind of wine in general you will have more suppleness. It tends to develop more tannins into the wine. So I wouldn't want to blend this wine with a wine with the more sabbioso, a more sandy soil. Because sandy soil has more water retention and is more moisture in the land, and the grapes, it tends to be more elegant in a way. So if you blend that, it's like a crash. It doesn't really work. It's like a yang or yin. Like the two things doesn't really collide together. You know what I mean? Like they don't really has the harmony when they're together. That's just my trial and error. That's what I say.
I'm Laika. All right, so for me, I have a question. First of all, I'm so happy to be able to talk to you. Yeah, so I'm kind of curious, like, what have you learned about the changing consumer taste in wine, and are you developing better wines to adapt to their taste?
Well, first of all, I'm already making a very good wine, so I wouldn't say I'm going to go any better. It's just it depends on the year. And like I said, I'm making an honest wine, and I just do whatever I can to make the best out of the year, what God has been given in that particular. So sometimes, to me, I already started in a very very advanced, I didn't just come here to making wine to learn about how to make a better wine. It's just that I already got a blueprint in my mind how things are gonna go. It's just that I have to adapt to that tradition, the way they work here, the way they work in the vineyard, because like most of 90% of my 80 to 85, I wouldn't say 90. Let me rephrase that. So 80 to 85% of my vineyards, they are Albarello. So Albarello is the type of a training system. In France, I think they call it the Goblet. And in here, in America, I think it's like a standalone piece of vines. There are no line training, nothing. It's not like a Dawn, or it's not like So Gaillot is basically a standalone vines. We call it the Albarello. So these, I have to learn the pruning from scratch. That's the only thing that I have to really to pick up, to learn how am I going to prune, because pruning is the most important work. It's one of the most important works in winemaking, in viticulture, because this is the time how you control your yield. This is the time how you control a lot of things. I don't want to go deep into technicals, but so to answer your question. I'm not catering a certain market, so I wouldn't say I'm gonna, I'm not trying to make a wine that, the market's not, let me put it this way. The market's not gonna change how I'm gonna make it. This is the way I know the way that I'm gonna make wine. I knew it right from the beginning. I just have to prove it. I just have to experiment. This is the way that I do things. It's not because I could sell a lot more in China or in Indonesia or Singapore or in Germany or in England, so I have to make a wine to taste for certain critics. You see what I mean? That I will leave that job to someone else. It's just not me. And it's not my gig. It's just that I'm doing a wine that will speak for itself. The originality is very important. Every single year, I'm thinking about how am I going to tell the story of this particular year of the vintage. This is what I care for. I don't care anybody else. I don't care the score. I don't care what. As long as you taste my wine, you know the wine's from Mount Etna. It's not from Toscana. It doesn't taste like Chianti or Super Tuscan because a lot of people enjoy that kind of palate that may be for a certain region, for a certain market. But it's just that I would rather do like what I want to tell the story. I want to introduce to people what really Etna tastes like.
So thank you, Stef. So I think let's call it a night, and really thank you, and it's a really fascinating story, and we look forward to drinking more vintages and see how your wines develop.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. Happy to hear. It's my honor, and to hear from you again. Thank you, Stevie. I appreciate your job and your effort put into that. And thank you very much for Liker helping me to go through all that technical trouble earlier.
Grazie. I have the diehards online, so I just want to remind you that I've published the next few episodes of the Italian Wine Club, especially the Ambassador's Corner. So coming up, I see Paul. I did see Paul Bologna. He's up next week. Massimiliano Brambilla. And then the week after that, on the 19th, we have Gianluca Quirolli with Stefano Chiarlo. The week after that, on the 26th, we have Jody Hellman with Enrico Della Piano. And then we have Cynthia Chaplin with Ilaria Takis. Of course, Ilaria is the daughter of Giacomo Takis. She actually has a winery, so Cynthia will be talking about that. And then Hugh Priest comes with the big name Ariana Occhipinti, and that's on the 9th of September.
Wow, there you got a lot of nice stuff going on at the pipeline. Yeah, cool.
So that's it for now. And
that's wonderful.
Goodbye and arrivederci. See you next week.
Arrivederci. Ciao.
Listen to the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Himalaya FM, and more. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the show. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. Until next time, cin cin.